Let's be very clear about something. Insulin resistance, the underlying metabolic dysfunction driving type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and much chronic disease, is not going to be fixed by changing when you eat. It's a complex, multifactorial condition that requires a comprehensive approach, and meal timing is, at best, one small piece of a much larger puzzle. Insulin resistance develops over years or decades through multiple mechanisms. Excess visceral fat, the metabolically active fat surrounding your organs, secretes inflammatory molecules that directly impair insulin signaling. Chronic low-grade inflammation from obesity, poor diet, stress, or other sources disrupts cellular insulin receptors. Physical inactivity reduces the number of glucose transporters in muscle cells. Sleep deprivation acutely impairs glucose metabolism. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which antagonizes insulin. This is not a single-cause problem with a single-cause solution. The evidence for exercise in treating insulin resistance is far stronger than evidence for any specific dietary pattern, including intermittent fasting. Resistance training increases muscle mass, and muscle is a major site of glucose disposal. More muscle means better glucose control. High-intensity interval training improves mitochondrial function and enhances insulin sensitivity. Even moderate walking after meals reduces glucose excursions. If you're doing intermittent fasting but remaining sedentary, you're missing the most powerful intervention available. Weight loss, regardless of how it's achieved, improves insulin sensitivity. This is one of the most robust findings in metabolic research. Lose 10 to 15% of your body weight through any method, and your insulin resistance will likely improve substantially. The mechanism matters less than the outcome. Whether you lose weight through intermittent fasting, calorie counting, low carb, low fat, Mediterranean diet, or increased exercise doesn't matter as much as the actual weight loss. Sleep is criminally underappreciated in metabolic health discussions. Sleep deprivation, even a single night of 4 to 5 hours, creates temporary insulin resistance. Chronic poor sleep is a major risk factor for type 2 diabetes. If you're optimizing your eating window but sleeping 5 hours a night, you're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Fix your sleep first. 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep is non-negotiable for metabolic health. Stress management might be as important as diet for insulin resistance. Chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated, and cortisol raises blood glucose and promotes insulin resistance. Mindfulness practices, therapy, social connection, time in nature, hobbies, all of these affect your metabolic health through stress pathways. We tend to ignore these interventions because they're harder to study and commodify than dietary protocols. The type of diet matters, but perhaps not in the way people think. Highly processed foods with refined carbohydrates and added sugars clearly worsen insulin resistance. Whole foods with fiber, particularly from vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, improve insulin sensitivity. But beyond avoiding the obvious worst offenders, the optimal macronutrient distribution, whether low-carb, low-fat, or balanced, is probably less important than overall food quality and total calorie intake. For many people with established insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, lifestyle interventions alone may be insufficient, at least initially. This is where medications like metformin come in. Metformin improves insulin sensitivity through multiple mechanisms, reduces hepatic glucose production, and has an excellent safety profile. The data supporting metformin in prediabetes and diabetes is overwhelming. Yet, there's tremendous resistance to medication, with people hoping diet alone will be enough. Here's the reality. The most successful interventions for insulin resistance combine multiple strategies. Weight loss through whatever dietary approach you can sustain, regular exercise including both resistance training and cardiovascular activity, adequate sleep, stress management, and appropriate medication when needed. Intermittent fasting might be one useful tool in this toolbox, particularly if it helps you create a calorie deficit without feeling deprived. But it's one tool among several, not a magic bullet. The timeline for reversing insulin resistance matters too. This condition developed over years. It's not going to fully reverse in weeks. Expect months to see substantial improvements, possibly years to fully optimize insulin sensitivity, especially if you're significantly overweight or have had diabetes for a long time. Short-term studies showing modest improvements after 8 weeks don't capture the full trajectory of metabolic healing. Monitoring is essential. Don't guess about your insulin resistance status. Get tested. Fasting glucose, fasting insulin, hemoglobin A1C, these tests tell you objectively whether your interventions are working. Continuous glucose monitors can show you how different foods and eating patterns affect your personal glucose control. Use data, not hope, to guide your approach.